Good morning.
Morning.
Good
Good morning.
morning.
I,
Morning.
I thought I'd throw you a little Bonnie Tyler since she passed away like a week or so ago. Uh, so there you go for all you 80s fans. Um, Happy July 20th. We are down into the second half of the year. I'm assuming most people watched some kind of sporting event yesterday. I don't know if uh, your team won or not, but I will say it was a exciting event. So there you go. I do want to ask a question though, that I think is relevant to real estate. Actually, so I was watching this game yesterday, and the announcers were talking about uh, Spain's strategy. And I guess the question, which is an age old question, does offense or defense win championships? What do you think?
I only play pickleball, but I think it's defense.
Okay.
I'm a basketball
I think
guy,
a lot of
Brett.
people would say defense. Yeah. Mike,
Brett,
what
I'm
you
a
got?
basketball guy, and it's always been good offense beats good defense.
Okay.
You can't score goals or points playing defense.
In theory. So if we took this to real estate, what do you think wins your year, offense or defense?
I think offense, be the one in front of your people.
Yeah.
Go be making the touches because someone else will if you don't.
I like that, Melissa. What else? Somebody else. What do you think?
Can't
Uh,
don't
I think offense, but yet when you look at it, it's the entire team because you can have very talented players, so you can be highly talented, but you won't win without that team around you. It's the entire team.
So I found it interesting. Spain's strategy was offense because when they were playing offense, they kept the ball away from the other team. And I heard the announcer talk about that, and it's made me immediately think of real estate in the sense that if we're lead generating and we're getting to the people first, we're keeping them away from the other real estate agents in the marketplace. So if I'm calling the expireds first, I'm playing offense, keeping those opportunities away from other agents. Or if I'm calling my database, I'm staying in relationship with those people in an offensive perspective that if not, they may get picked off on Zillow or some at an open house or something along those lines. So it started making me really think about the great agents stay on offense because they're in front of their people. And it was very similar to the strategy that Spain had yesterday in the game, which just means you're keeping the ball away from the other team or you're keeping the clients away from all the other real estate agents that can pick them up if you don't stay in front of them.
Also, look at the shots on goal, right? 20-0, right?
Yeah.
Make the call, get a no, get a no, get a no, no, and then all of a sudden they got a yes, and that's what mattered.
Love that
Anyway,
stuff.
God nailed it.
any,
I felt
there you
like it
go.
was just a matter of time before Spain won. I'm surprised it was only 1-0. Their goalie played lights out.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, it just made me think yesterday, and I thought, let's start off tomorrow with that. All right, moving on.
Yeah, I got one more if I can add.
Okay, go for it.
You can't score any goals if you don't take any shots.
All right, true. Tell me more.
Profound.
All right, let's hit the numbers. Broward County, single family. All right. We had a little bit of a bounce back on active status changes this week, which I think was good because last week was quite low. 181 went under contract. Still Uh, a little bit soft, but we're kind of holding the line on this 180 number. Broward County single family sitting with 138 in pending. Um, it it's still soft, right? Like, and one of my questions is, are we feeling it in the marketplace? I know we're feeling it at the office level a little bit. Our numbers for the month of July are a little soft, not falling off a cliff, but they're just a little soft. Um, 221 closings the last 7 days was a low number compared to the last 3 weeks. Um, we saw 4th of July weekend. No, that would be early June. Early June was 213, so maybe that's kind of comparable here. But it's certainly not the numbers we were seeing earlier in the year. There's definitely a little bit of a softening, right? If I go to Broward County condo, 765 active status changes, bounce back a little bit from last week. But look, I mean, we were in the 900s earlier in, the ramp up of the final part of the spring market. 765 is probably normal, I would guess, in terms of active listings coming to the market. Man, my eyes are having trouble seeing here. Hold on. All right, well, 103 under contract. Um, like I said, a little softening. We were seeing 120s, 125s, high 110s. There was a 132 back in May, 103, just a little softer. 85 pending, same kind of story. When we were popping 113 a week, 115 a week, and then to come down to 80 last week and 85 this week, it's just softer, guys. And 159 closings actually is a decent number compared to some of these 145 weeks. But it's not the 190s, the 197s, the 170s, right? So it's just a little softer. If I go to Miami-Dade single family, 644 was a good bounce back of single family in Miami-Dade County. It's a 4-week high. You can see we had 708 back in the middle of June, and we've been kind of soft on the listings in Miami-Dade. So it was a nice bounce back for single family in Miami-Dade. 97 under contract. Very soft number. 135 pending, very soft number. And 142 closings, there were some 130s, 140, 150s. It's just, it's the market's a little disrupted right now, guys. If I do Miami-Dade condo, we've got 838 on the active status changes, so a nice bounce back here on Miami-Dade condos. 79 under contract, same story. It's a broken record. We were in the hundreds or high 90s, and then to be 3 weeks under 80 is soft, right? 121 pendings is comparable to last week, but certainly not the 160s, the 150s, or the 140s we were seeing many weeks previously. And then 122 on the closings. If I jump to Palm Beach, single family, we've got 758 active status changes, which is a big jump up from last week. And that's the highest number we've seen since early June. So in about 45 days, that's a big number. And prior to that, it was higher than some of those weeks. So it looks like there's a lot of listings popping in Palm Beach. We've got 178 that went under contract. Same story, guys. 240, 260s, a lot of numbers over 200, and then the last 3 weeks in the 180 range. 77 pending, certainly bouncing around a little more here, but you can see it on the screen. 77 and 69 is not the same as 117, 106, 110, right? And then 262 closings is a little down compared to the 300 range that most of those were happening. So, not that I want to be the bearer of bad news. Let me hit the condos real quick and then let's talk. So 544 active status, big jump from the week before. So these numbers were 700 in the spring market, 550. I don't think that's necessarily that bad of a number. 87 under contract is a soft number for condos in Palm Beach. You're looking in the 110s, 120s, and then it started getting disrupted just like the other markets about 3-4 weeks ago. And then, but 59 pending kind of feels consistent with what we've been seeing here. 136 closings, just a little softer, guys. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but the market's just a little softer right now. And is that a good or a bad thing? I think we understand why, but it kind of goes back to our conversation earlier. Go play offense and you'll win. Go lead generate, go get in front of people and you will win, or somebody else will. Thoughts, comments?
In just about every category, the actives appear to have improved. And to me, playing along the same coattailing the soccer analogies and the
It's
comparison.
football, Rick. Football. Okay.
This is like moving the ball downfield, and now you're in scoring position. You can't score without active inventory. So I don't see this as bad news. It's just news. And you're right. It's getting your unfair share and making sure that you're in position to score, which to me, number one way to score is put houses and condos on the market. And so I see it as opportunity, not necessarily as bad news. To me, I've always said there's no good or bad market. There's just a market. And the question is, what strategy wins in that market? And the other thought I had around Spain, Argentina is that Spain had a strategy, but I'm going to speculate that different teams have different strengths and weaknesses, just like markets do. And it's not necessarily a one size fits all strategy. It's what strategy works in the current scheme and market in your local market, in your hyper local area.
Yeah. Anybody else? Thoughts on the numbers? Are you feeling it in the marketplace? What are you feeling?
So I think also in condo sales, I think, do you as an agent or do we as agents feel confident in selling condos in order to give that energy to our buyers? Because buyers are not going to pull the trigger if they're not feeling confident. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like it's our job as realtors to bring confidence and hope to our clients and find them deals that make them feel confident in what they're purchasing. So we need we need some conversations and scripts around that. And we need to check ourselves about how confident we are in selling that product.
Any other thoughts?
I think the numbers are affected by the World Cup because it was locally played here.
Yeah.
A lot of distractions. People who may be looking for homes were going to the games, and we have a lot of ethnically diverse people, especially Hispanics in South Florida. So I think the numbers started tailing off when World Cup started, and we're probably going to see an uptake now that it's ended.
Interesting point. I think there's probably some truth to that. I would have thought the World Cup might have brought some new buyers to the market. But I definitely think if you held an open house yesterday around 3:00, I don't think you had a big attendance.
Probably not.
I think it also has to do with the war with Iran. I mean, we're basically going back into war, and you know, un- uncertainty usually rattles markets. So I
Yeah.
think that there's probably a couple, ticks in there just because of that.
Yeah, can I ask
100%.
just to
Yeah.
piggyback off of I forgot who mentioned just how we really have to be communicating to our buyers, you know, finding the best way to educate them so that they feel confident in terms of making a decision when it comes, especially with the condo market. Has anyone had experience with that? Any, tips that you've been using with your buyers that I might be able to work with mine?
Great question, Mark.
I usually, when people are coming into the condo market for the buyers that we have represented, our dialogue, you know, we our dialogue is basically that the condo market is in a bloodbath, right? And like most markets, the condo market, has overshot to the downside. And we let them know it is likely that you'll never be able to pick a condo at this price again. Now, have most markets have a cycle of about 18 months. The condo market has been in this cycle for about 2 years. You have likely missed the bottom at this point, but you are still buying at or near the bottom. And I usually talk about the market and how we've seen the demand pick up. Those rock bottom deals, a lot of those are gone. There's a few to be had left, but a lot of them have, they were kind of scooped up last year. And I just reinforced that they're still buying, not at the bottom, but they're still near the bottom, and that they'll be happy 3 to 5 years out.
Do you think
Yeah.
the sellers are in tune with the market the way it is right now?
Some are still not. I think a lot of the sellers, they're surrounded by their environment in the condos. So they're hearing all of the bad news from their neighbor owners and from other owners in the building that are trying to sell. So sellers, what we find is that they're a little bit more realistic about price. Unless they're an out-of-state condo owner who's not really in the know as to what's going on here. If you're here, they know, right? The condo market, it wasn't just Surfside that hit the condo market. It was the Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar collapsing against the US dollar at a time where HOA prices were increasing and assessments were getting hit. We're hitting all these condos, and half the condo market is Canadians. So they were getting crushed. That's really what it was just I don't know what's the right analogy here, but it was just everything hit all at once for the condo market. So
Got it.
a lot of that, depending on who you're talking to, the Canadian, they can't get out fast enough. And
Yep.
seniors, the elderly, they can't get out fast enough. So it really depends. It really depends on who you're talking to and the age of the building, right? Because the older the building, the more problems it has and the more assessments that you could be facing. So, but we are finding that sellers are more realistic about price.
Good. I hope you can use these stats so it's not opinion based, it's fact based around what's going on in the market. That's kind of the big intention of this. But let's move forward. Okay, so on Inman this week it said inflation cooled in June. What does it mean for mortgage rates? Inflation's probably the biggest challenge for us as an industry if it doesn't come down. Because if inflation stays up, the government's going to be motivated to raise the Fed rate, which then in turn will trickle down to mortgage rates. And if you'd attended the Market Matters we did back in April, inflation's so directly tied to the price of oil right now. And if you remember, the price of a barrel of oil got north of $100 in the middle of all this conflict, and starting in May, the price of a barrel of oil came down, and it came down to about $78. So that in turn helped ease inflation in the month of June, which we started to get a little excited that this conflict was going to be over. We started to get a little excited that mortgage rates were going to start to come down. And as this conflict heats up, I think it's safe to assume the price of a barrel of oil is going to go back up a little bit, which is going to jack with inflation, which could slow down the economy a little bit. But the fact that it cooled in June was a positive for us going forward. It fell to 3.4. If you remember, it was up to 4.2, I think, at one point in time. So this is a good sign for the economy, and hopefully the Fed looks at this and says, okay, if this conflict in Iran resolves itself, inflation will naturally cool. We don't have to go jack with the Fed rate. But I still think they're going to jack with the Fed rate. Just my halfway educated opinion. Anybody else have thoughts on this? All right.
You can expect volatility. That's the thought. It's just what with Iran and with inflation concerns. I mean, crude oil is still under $90 right now, but at the same time, it's just bouncing around. So my advice is, so what? Now what? How do you win in spite of, not because of what's going on? I mean, two transactions in the next 30 to 60 days changes everything for an individual agent at the right price point out of
Yep.
300,000 potential clients. I mean, pick a number for your market area. So focus on the controllables. That's really the message I want heard.
Well said,
That's
Rick.
good. Richard, do you have a comment?
And I absolutely love what Rick just said. All
Yeah.
the news, good or bad, doesn't matter. Just, get out there and do what you've got to do to change your life.
Play offense. That's my message today.
There you
All
go.
right. HousingWire, Logan wrote this article. He said, can we weather the conflict 2.0? I guess he's saying this escalation in Iran is what he's calling conflict 2.0. The thing is he quotes this mortgage number, 6.64%. And the reason he quotes it is in the past few years, housing demand always slows down when rates go over 6.64. That's what the research shows. Well, if I go to the rate as of Friday business close, it was 6.64. I'm sorry, 6.63. So we're at that threshold that if it goes much higher, it could slow down demand. I've already seen demand slow down a little bit. That's the term I'm using, softening. However, as long as we can kind of hold this line, I think the consumer's resilient, will be fine. The question is, if it goes up to closer to 7, what happens to demand in the marketplace? We'll see, but by and large, we're okay at the moment. And I feel like inflation in the heat of the Iran conflict previously had the price of barrel oil over $100, and our mortgage rates were already priced into that. So it feels like that mortgage rates will hold for the short term. Even if I turn on the news tomorrow and rockets are flying, right? So, not to be insensitive, I'm trying to be analytical about it, right? And I think we're resilient at the moment, and I think we will weather this storm. But I do think it's attributing, as Dan pointed out earlier, I do think it's attributing to a little bit of the slowdown. Any other comments from wise ones on the call?
That's just a weird image to use for the article. Feels like clickbait.
Oh,
A partial fan. That's the weirdest. It makes no sense.
I don't know either, but all right.
I'll add one thing real quick that occurred to me when the question came up about buyer motivation. And for me, when I was active with buyers for, gosh, 15, 20 years, I always went straight to how long do you plan to live there? And focus on, use data to support that markets come and go and timing the markets near impossible and make it all about their experience and convert that fear of timing into fear of missing out instead. And what would it look like if you don't pull the trigger? What does quality of life look like? Should you really try to time out having your best life ever? Because
Yeah.
why would you defer and delay something that feels right, that you and your family are going to truly enjoy, and convert that fear into opportunity and excitement, and then use data to intellectually support that long term, it's always irons itself out. You don't lose long term. The best time to buy real estate is now and any time in the past. If you hold it long enough and if you don't sell under a panic or duress market, which will cycle back in, it's going to happen. So
Yep.
what does your best life look like and how do I serve you in that capacity? That was always the energy I tried to bring. And it just shifted the mentality from fear to opportunity.
That's good.
Here's another thought on this, guys. Our market's a little bit different than the rest of the country, which is where all of these articles are coming from. Right? Our market is a little bit more high end than the rest of the country. Our median price point keeps going up. But more importantly, in the condo market, we're just shy of 60% being cash deals. In single family homes, they're somewhere in the 35 to 40% range, cash deals. Those people aren't concerned about this. They're concerned more about the uncertainty of the world rather than the interest rates. And that might be a reason why we're not seeing as bad a slowdown as we are. When he uses that 6.64 number, historically, things have slowed down a good bit. We're seeing a slowdown, but not nearly as dramatic as it would have been in the past.
True. There was an article on RIS Media that said consumer sentiment was up in June, but economic optimism is still elusive, meaning I think everybody's a little nervous about the economy, but there was a measure that said the consumer felt better in the month of June. And I think that that's a good thing. It's speaking to the resilience of the consumer right now. It's speaking to the resilience of our market. And I just,
Brett,
I
scroll
don't know
down
how.
on this
Yeah,
article.
go ahead.
This is, when I read this earlier, this was as confusing as could be. If you read this, it says sentiment improved 9.9% in July. So he's looking at the first 2 weeks of July, which reached 54.4%. However, the indicator declined 11.8% on an annual basis. And year over year, it was even worse than that. So you saw a short-term jump in consumer confidence. And I'm going, is that because he took this survey before, War 2.0 kicked back in 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, which none of this was even a thought last year. So
Yeah.
we got better from June where we were in peace. Now it's going to drop off again, but we're still a whole lot worse off than we were a year ago.
Yeah. I definitely think the consumer sentiment is down from a year ago, if we're just kind of generalizing this article, right? I think that's understood. But I think what I'm hearing in that, Richard, is man, that sentiment changes week to week.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
depending
does.
on what the headline is from the weekend, and they're certainly playing uh, a headline game with the media. So you'll notice, and I think we talked about it out here before, big things happen on Friday and then they try to resolve it by Sunday evening before the stock market opens on Monday, right? And it plays into this whole uh they're paying attention to the economy and trying to resolve a conflict at the same time, which is kind of crazy. But anyway,
I
moving
think
on.
also the new Fed chair coming in May may make
Yeah.
it a little wishy-washy.
Yep. One other thing I wanted to hit before we run out of time. You probably saw headlines. Keller Williams acquired this 1,200 agent, basically big giant real estate team called Jason Mitchell Group. It was one of the largest teams in the country. But what this is Jason Mitchell has enormous relationships with Zillows and Rockets and Mr. Coopers and New American Funding and all these corporate relationships. And the goal of this acquisition is actually to drive leads down to agents in our market centers. It wasn't just an acquisition of a real estate team, it was an acquisition of a distribution system of leads to drive down to our agents in our market centers around the country. And they plan on scaling this team through those relationships to and to use the distribution network of Keller Williams to service those leads. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I don't think we'll see anything of this for 6 to 9 months. But I do think it's an interesting thing to keep your eye on of what they've done. Because this is a giant organization that is built on lead distribution. And he, in the dialogue when we met with him, he has more leads than he can service, which is kind of a good problem to have. So they see, and Jason sees it as partnering with our network to be able to scale this really, really, really big. You probably saw that headline. So anyway, just wanted to make sure I hit it. All that to say, play offense. Offense won the World Cup. Offense is going to win your year. I'm going with offense.
Get after it.
Have a great week, guys. Good to see
All right.
everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.